Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder on February 13th, 2019. I believe there's a new sheriff in town, and it's a federal corporation. I'm going to say it's the American Legion, although there are a number of federal corporations, and I don't know what all their powers are, but I looked at the American Legion for obvious reasons, being a veteran. And yeah, I think that they're actually the civil authority um, in the current system that we're under. And for the American Legion, because I have sent the American Legion a number of the complaints that I have shown in previous videos. So if you're new to my videos, this isn't like the first thing I've done. I've been at this for quite some time, over 300 videos, and I send lots of paper to lots of different places questioning what's going on and looking for answers. But at the end of the day, I'm Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, E6, United States Army, 374-506794. And what I'm going to show you is we're going to just look at some basic laws and statements that have been made and manuals that are written, regulations that are written, and say, well, based on this, you know, I believe we're in charge. Why aren't we doing something? And it isn't that we can't. It's just, well, what's the vehicle to use? I'm saying, well, it's the American Legion or something similar. So one of the things I'd like to show, I'm sure a lot have seen this before, but this is Kavanaugh during his hearings, and Lindsey Graham, and they're going to be talking about the laws of armed conflict and military tribunals and so forth. So it's just a couple minutes. I'm going to put it on, then I'm going to turn it off, regroup, and I'll be back. So let's just have a listen to what they had to say.
When the buildings fell.
So when somebody says post 9/11 that we've been at war and it's called the war on terrorism, do you generally agree with that concept?
I do, Senator, because Congress passed the authorization for use of military force, which is still in effect, and that was passed, of course, on September 14th, 2001, 3 days later.
Let's talk about the law in war. Is there a body of law called the law of armed conflict?
There is such a body, Senator.
Is there a body of law that's called basic criminal law?
Yes, Senator.
Are there differences between those two bodies of law?
Yes, Senator.
From an American citizen's point of view, do your constitutional rights follow you? If you're in Paris, does the Fourth Amendment protect you as an American from your own government?
From your own government, yes.
Okay. So if you're in Afghanistan, do your constitutional rights protect you against your own government?
If you're an American in Afghanistan, you have constitutional rights as against the U.S. government.
Is there a long-standing...
That's
Right.
long-settled law.
Isn't there also a long-settled law that it goes back to Eisenstrater case? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Johnson versus Eisentrager.
Right. That American citizens who collaborate with the enemy have considered enemy combatants.
They can be. They can be. They're sometimes criminally prosecuted, sometimes treated in the military.
Well, let's talk about can be. I think
under Supreme Court precedent.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a Supreme Court decision that said that American citizens who collaborated with Nazi saboteurs were tried by the military. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think a couple of them were executed.
Yeah.
So if anybody doubts, there's a long-standing history in this country that your constitutional rights follow you wherever you go, but you don't have a constitutional right to turn on your own government and collaborate with the enemy of the nation. You'll be treated differently. What's the name of the case, if you can recall, that reaffirmed the concept that you could hold one of our own as an enemy combatant if they were engaged in terrorist activities in Afghanistan? Are you familiar with that case?
Yeah, Hamdi.
Okay. So the bottom line is, on every American citizen, no, you have constitutional rights, but you do not have a constitutional right to collaborate with the enemy. There's a body of law well-developed long before 9/11 that understood the difference between basic criminal law and the law of armed conflict. Do you understand those differences?
I do understand that they're...
Okay. Lindsey Graham understands. Kavanaugh understands. I understand. Do you understand? I'm sure that you do. Right? So, we're not living in Kansas. We're living in Oz. Things aren't quite the way that they seem. We're not under a civilian government enforcing the Constitution. We're under a military government that's supposed to be enforcing the Constitution. But the way they work would be different. And you heard Lindsey Graham talk about the Fourth Amendment. So give me just a second. I want to pull it up. I didn't have it pulled up here, so I got to stop. And I'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall be issued, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or thing to be seized. Well, that all sounds good, but if you were to go to court today and look at the docket, they'd have your name backwards. They wouldn't be using this name called your full legal name, which is your first name, middle names, last name, no initials, no nicknames. Right? They wouldn't be using that. They would be using your name like Ratluski, Robert, or Ratluski, Robert A, or Robert A. Ratluski, or something other than Robert Allen Ratluski. Now, they may use that in the papers in the courtroom, but on the docket, it would not be your full legal name. Well, they just stole your person, right? You're not securing your person. It isn't you going to court. And if you look at the, and I'm sure I'll show one before this is over, because I'm going to show some letters that I've sent to the American Legion already about these issues. And we'll see that if you look at the oath of office of a prosecutor or a judge in your county, they didn't take an oath of office in their full legal name. They used a middle initial. Well, that isn't their identity, right? Your identity is what's on your driver's license. So if you have a real ID compliant driver's license, which in 2020, that's the law of the land, if you don't have a real ID compliant driver's license by 2020, you won't be able to get on an airplane. Right? You're going to have to get some other form of identification from the federal government, like their passport ID. But it has to have your full legal name on it. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means your first name, middle name, last name, no initials or no nicknames. And of course, it does say or surname, and I'm not really sure why they make the distinction yet, but let's just say it's in there. Nevertheless, first name, middle name, last name. You want to identify me, that's what you have to use. Now, you go to court and you look at the paperwork that an attorney's putting in, it'll be in a middle initial name. You look at the name of the judge using a middle initial. You look at the name of justice, middle initial. You look at the name of Trump, middle initial. You look at the name of anybody in Congress. They're using a middle initial name on their oath of office. They're not taking the proper oath of office. Well, that's a violation of the Constitution as far as I'm concerned. And as it turns out, that's in the charter of the American Legion that they have to uphold and defend the Constitution. So they must have been given the power to do so, and I'm going to help them see that they have it. And then we're going to go exercise that power and drain some swamps. Okay, again, just a second here. Okay, so one of the things about these federal corporations is this, that in Title 28, which is the Judiciary and Judicial Procedures for the United States, in subsection 3002, definitions, 15, the United States means a federal corporation. Well, we can stop right there. What's the United States? The United States are federal corporations. So the American Legion is a federal corporation, so the American Legion is the United States. A lot of people would say, well, this means the United States is a federal corporation and they're going to come and attack you and take all your property and you need to run and dig a bunker. No, that's not right. No, the United States is a federal corporation. The American Legion is a federal corporation. Therefore, the American Legion is the United States. B, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States. Well, we just said the United States is a federal corporation. So an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the American Legion. And as it turns out, they have departments, right? Like Michigan is a department. And so I sent my department a number of things that I have sent to other places like the VA and so forth in the past, and complaints. And I'm not going to get too much into those, but I will share a couple before the video is over, just so you know they're good to see. In writing, you know, an explanation of things that they're hiding the truth behind this smoke and mirrors that we believe is a government. And none of these people have an oath of office. They're not the government. Anyways, and then a United States Marshal means a United States Marshal, a Deputy Marshal, or an official of the United States Marshal Services. Now look at United States Marshal Services, that's the title of something, and it has individuals in it. But United States with a lowercase m Marshal, that isn't the people at the courthouse. They're these people, United States Marshal Service, right? That's the people at the federal courthouse. No, this is a by definition marshal, not by title marshal. And again, I'm saying, well, okay, that again puts it right into. Hang on a second. All right, sorry about that. The phone's ringing a bit too much today. United States Marshal means United States lowercase m Marshal, a deputy marshal. So if this United States then is the American Legion, then the marshal is the guy that's in charge of the elected officer, and then his deputy. Right? They have the powers of a United States Marshal. That's what I believe. Anyways, we'll move on. Rob Ryder is my email address. Rob Ryder is my avatar. It's a little bit easier to say than Robert Allen Ratluski, although that's my name, veteran. My email address is courtofrecord@aol.com, and 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341-8664 is my mailing address. Well, let me show you just a few things here. So before we look at federal corporations specifically, I want to spend a little more time on what Lindsey Graham had to say, right, that we're under the laws of armed conflict, and the Justice Kavanaugh agreed. Well, in the Army, then, that would mean that Field Manual 27-10, the Department of Army Field Manual on the Law of Land Warfare, is the ruling document. There may be other documents that are used, but hey, this is the Law of Land Warfare by the Army, so I'm going to go to it and see what it says, and this is what, whatever's in here is what the Army would have to do. The purpose of this manual is to provide authoritative guidance to military personnel on the customary and treaty law applicable to conduct of warfare on land and to relationships between belligerents and neutral states. Right? Authoritative guidance. That means it's the law, right? You can't not do what this says. And so, it tells you they have these sources. You got customs and treaty that make up the law of armed conflict. And we have law-making treaties. And all of these are treaties that the military would have to enforce. And, Geneva Conventions of all sorts. And this thing called the Treaty on the Protection of Artistic and Scientific Institutions and Historical Monuments, also known as the Rourke Pact. Only the United States and a number of American republics are parties to this treaty, right? So this is like a domestic treaty, and this is for, I believe, all of these entities that we're going to see have been created and called a federal corporation. Right, that they would be, if you're a member of them, you would be protected under this treaty because of the fact that the Army has to enforce it. And as a member of joining a voluntary society, in other words, and that certain voluntary societies have more authority than others, and the voluntary societies with the most authority would be the ones that were created as a federal corporation. And so, like the Geneva Convention, right? The American National Red Cross is a federal corporation, and it is by law responsible for things to do with the Geneva Convention. And so it's almost like the National American Red Cross or the American National Red Cross, whichever way it is something that you should be able to register with to register your person to be in the United States. Right? That's how you become not just in the United States as far as a territory, which is, that's one definition of the United States, but another one is this idea of Americans in a society, and that's going to be done by being a member of an association that's been recognized by the Congress. And if 27-10 is involved, then also comes in this other manual, which is the Civil Affairs Manual for military governments. And these are all just things that have to do with this idea of being under some kind of armed conflict. And Lindsey Graham said, well, since 9/11. But when we go and look here in a minute at the American Legion, they say that we've been under conflict since 1990. It's in their first part. I'd say their bylaws. I don't know what the specific term is. I ain't going to use it yet. Okay, so what most people in the military may not understand, or people who don't, do the kinds of things I do for a daily basis may not understand, is that if you go into a courtroom, there's going to be a gold fringed flag. And a lot of people want to say, well, that means it's admiralty law. Oh my God, we're at the sea and so forth. And it's like, what are you people talking about? On a gold fringed flag, that's an Army flag. It's covered by this regulation, Army Regulation 840-10. All right, so if there's a gold fringed flag flying inside, that means the Army's been there. Now, whether that means the Army's there and that's their flag, or somebody captured the flag and that's their display, I'm not quite sure of. It looks to me like they're, it's more like a war trophy by the belligerents, and that we need to go get it back. Claim the room, basically. But what it says is unauthorized use of official flags, guidons, and streamers. There is no law that permits the sale, loan, or donation of flags, guidons, and streamers to individuals, organizations not in the military, except as furnished in 1 and 2 below. Educational institutions, the U.S. Army flag with streamers, and retired general officers. Otherwise, they shouldn't be flying an Army flag. Private unofficial use, display of positional colors, distinguishing flags, organizational colors, and guidons is prohibited. Well, a flag with gold fringe is a distinguishing flag. I don't plan on going through all this stuff, but just, you don't have to go far. You go into chapter 2 and you get to the flag of the United States. The flag of the United States is the symbol of our nation. The flag of the United States will be displayed outdoors at all Army installations. Gives all these different sizes. And here in a second we'll get to the national flags listed below are for indoor display and for use in ceremonies and parades. For these purposes, the flag of the United States will be of rayon banner cloth or heavyweight nylon, trimmed on 3 sides with golden yellow fringe, 2 1/2 inches wide. And it goes on to say where it can be flown. Military courtrooms. Authorized for indoor display, the flag of the United States is authorized for indoor display for each office, headquarters, organization authorized a positional color, distinguishing flag, or organizational color. Military offices not otherwise authorize an indoor flag. Military courtroom. U.S. military element, joint commands, So my question is, do they have gold fringe flags at the American Legion? You know, they have them in churches. Go to a church and look in the back left-hand corner. There'll be a gold fringe flag standing in the corner, been posted. Use and display by civilians. The use and display of the U.S. flag by civilians, civilian groups, and organizations are governed under 36 U.S.C. 173, which basically goes on to say you can't fly a military flag as a civilian. Okay, so that's what you will find in every courtroom in America. They're all gold fringe flags. Well, that means you're in a military courtroom because that's the style of court that they fly in. So either that's a military tribunal, or again, it's somebody stole it, it has that as a wall hanging, but it's a military tribunal's courtroom. The federal law shall be applied there. It's just to be applied, it has to come from the American Legion because they're the United States. You can be a member of the society, right, and be in the United States, but these associations are the United States. Let me show you what I mean. So this is Title 36, United States Code. Patriotic and national observances, ceremonies, and organizations. Right? And if we went down here to organizations, these are all the entities that are federal corporations. So it's, just not the American Legion. All of these are. Agricultural Hall of Fame, Academy of Arts and Letters, Chemical Society, ex-prisoners of war, Civil Air Patrol, on and on and on, right? Veterans of foreign wars are in here. The disabled American vets are in here. Women's Army Courts, Veterans Association, Vietnam Veterans of America. All of these entities in here are federal corporations. You are the United States. If you're a member, well, then you're in the United States. But you need to use your membership and use the administration that's been put in place to be used. And that's what the entity itself is, right? It is the thing that's judicially noticed. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second here. Give me just a minute to grab some other papers. Okay, so let's look now at the American Legion. Again, there's all sorts of federally chartered organizations. But what we're going to look at here is just the American Legion. So what does it say? Organization. Now this is what, this is a federal charter from Congress. The American Legion, in this chapter, the corporation is a federally chartered corporation. It has perpetual existence, purposes. The purpose of the corporation are to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's what Congress said. That's the reason you're here, to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, to promote peace and goodwill among the peoples of the United States and all nations of the earth, to preserve the memories and incidents of 2 world wars and the other great hostilities fought, to uphold democracy, to cement the ties and comradeship born of service, and to consecrate, look at that, the efforts of its members to mutual helpfulness and service to their country, working for the common good. Right, so they have a duty under their charter to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Well, if I just went to court and they're not using my full legal name and the attorney isn't using his full legal name, and well, they're offending the 4th Amendment of the Constitution. Who am I going to tell? Right, well, I've tried to tell a lot of people who didn't pay attention to it so far, but now I'm going to go tell these people. I'm going to go tell my comrades at the American Legion. And actually, I already did, and I'm sure they're still scratching their head. Where'd all this shit come from? Because I really, it's already stuff that was written, so I just had to email it to them, let them digest it for a bit. Who can be a member? You got these memberships, right? Hey, which one? I got in August 24, 1982 to 1984. But look at this. Or August 2nd, 1990 through the date of cessation of hostilities as described or decided by the United States government. Well, that's never happened. Right? So since we've been at war basically since 1990, because there is no other break, right? So as far as the American Legion has been, or yeah, the American Legion is concerned, we've been at war since 1990. Was honorably discharged or separated from that service or continues to serve honorably after that period. Well, that means somebody today in active duty could be a member of the American Legion. And I really think they should be. I think, we all need to go join. But yeah, if you're the American, if you're on active duty right now, you could be a member of the American Legion. Powers: adopt a constitution, check. Bylaws, check. Regulations to carry out the purposes of the corporation. What's their purpose? What was their purpose? To uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay, they got to have a plan. What's the plan, Commander? Adopt and alter a corporate seal, establish and maintain offices to conduct its activities, establish state territorial organizations and local chapters or post organizations, acquire, own, lease, encumber, transfer property as necessary to carry out the purposes of the corporation. What's the purpose of the corporation? To defend the Constitution. Sue and be sued, and to do other acts necessary. Now, the sue and be sued, I don't think it's this one they talk about it, but they had a footnote somewhere I was reading that it used to say sue and be sued in courts of law and equity. Well, all suits in law and equity are under the third Article 3 of the Constitution. That's the only place you can have a court of law or equity is, that's the jurisdiction of the United States. Where's that? Yeah, right here. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and such inferior courts as Congress may, from time to time, ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold offices during times of good behavior. You notice it didn't say anything about justices. It says judges. And the justices will tell you, they're not judges, they're justices. So who are the judges of the Supreme and inferior courts? The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and the treaties made or shall be made under their authority. To all cases affecting ambassadors and other public ministers and councils, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party. Well, if you're offending the United States, then that just made the United States a party. And you would be offending the United States if you offended the Constitution because because it's in American Legion's purposes to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, to promote peace and goodwill among the peoples of the United States and all the nations of the earth. And we've been given the power to do it. You have a seal, right? You can sue and be sued in courts of law and equity. Well, there's many kinds of suits. You could sue for an arrest warrant, basically, to have somebody arrested, right? And because you're the United States, you get to use the United States attorney. See, I've tried to have people arrested before, and I've sent complaints to these federal courts and state courts and so forth, and I've gotten some answers back. And one of the answers I got back was that it appeared that I was trying to file a criminal complaint in a federal court, but that could only be done through the United States attorney. Okay, well, that would mean the entity representing the United States. The only question is, well, who's the United States? Well, we're answering that. The United States are federal corporations. And in particular, this one, the American Legion. But I'm saying if you were a member of any of these, what page was that on? 23, 24. If you're a member of any of these Where did they go? Patriotic and national organizations, right? That these are all voluntary organizations. And there has to be a way to, you know, be able to be a member of any one of them. And if you were, and you filled out your card right with your full legal name and did everything properly, well, then you'd be seen in the United States. As a way to cover all the civilians. But until then, it doesn't change the fact that, you know, those of us that already have the ticket punch can't use what we have. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Try to use the powers of the federal corporation that we've been granted. Okay, hang on a second. All right, this one here is a little bit easier to read. So, United States Code annotated. What am I looking at anyways? I got this off the American Legion website, right? Charter of the American Legion, National Constitution and Bylaws, Uniform Codes of Procedures for the revocation, cancellation, suspension of a department, and post charters. In other words, if you don't uphold your charter, well, we can have you removed. We're not going to do that. We're just going to, you know, we're going to use the power we got. This is all the things we looked at already. What did I want to show you here? Here. Oh, they got to send an annual report to Congress, right? So it's that thing there that makes them governmental, is they have to report to Congress on their yearly doings. So they do have, you know, a quasi-governmental relationship, if not truly just governmental relationship. I'm saying we are the government. Preamble. For God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purposes: to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to maintain law and order. How are you going to maintain law and order unless you can enforce it? Right? That's my point. You have to be able to enforce it to maintain it. To apply just enough coercive force, and if you didn't know you had the power before American Legion commanders, you do, and, well, I'm coming to use them. I'm coming to use your power. To foster and perpetuate a 100% Americanism. No socialism. Be Americanism. You can go look that up. To preserve the memories and incidents of our associations and great wars. To inculcate a sense of individual obligation to community, state, and nation. I may not have said it right, but that means to repetitiously pound in your head you have a duty to serve. To combat the autocracy of both the classes and the masses. To make right the master of might. I say again, to make right the master of might. Make right the master of might. Yeah, man. To promote peace and goodwill on earth, to safeguard and transmit to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. That'd be like working for the common good. And I don't need to go into all of this. You can download it yourself. I'm just saying, well, because of this, it's a doorway into the United States to be judicially noticed by an entity that can sue or be sued, who has as its purpose for being to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And if they're taking you to court, or they're taking your house in a foreclosure, and they're not using your full legal name, because they don't, and that's what all my videos are about. For the last 4 or 5 years, it's me saying, man, they're not using our full legal name. They don't use their full legal name. Look, they're not using the proper name of the county or the state or whatever. You know, I live where I would say, well, this is supposed to be Kent County, Michigan. But you go to court, it's County of Kent, State of Michigan. Well, who the hell is that? Well, you know, as it turns out, State of Michigan, County of Kent, State of Michigan, is in United States of America. and United States of America without the T capitalized to be part of the title, just United States of America. Well, that's King George's. It's in the Treaty of Peace, 1783. In fact, I'll show you, because I just like to do that kind of stuff. Hang on here. Okay, so this is the Treaty of Peace, signed in Paris, September 3rd, 1783. Ratified and proclaimed by the Congress of the United States. That'd be the Continental Congress. Hey, that'd be different than the Congress we have today, right? The Continental style Congress is the Congress of the United States, apparently. A unilateral body. So this is the King speaking, in the name of his most holy and undivided Trinity. In the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity, it having pleased the divine providence to dispose the hearts of our most serene and most potent Prince George III, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, Duke of Brunswick and Luxembourg, or Lauenburg, Arch-Treasurer and Prince Elector of the Holy Roman Empire, and of the United States of America. Well, he just said he's the King of the United States of America. Right? That's his jurisdiction. That's what he used to call the colonies. The colonies had other names for themselves, but to him, they were the United States of America. They were his. So that is different. You know, United States of America isn't the same term as was used in the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union in 1777, in which it said in the first article, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. Two different entities, the United States of America and United States of America, which neither of those are the United States. They may be the two entities that are joined together in union under the Constitution to be governed by the United States, but they're not the United States. The United States is a federal corporation. The judiciary has spoken. You can have your interpretation, but the judiciary has said that the United States is a federal corporation. And that's just the way she rolls. Okay, pause again. Okay, so, what I just shared isn't meant to explain everything. It's just the reason I'm saying there's a new sheriff in town. It's a federal corporation. For me, it's the American Legion. That's where I'm going to start. And so that's what I did. And what I want to do now is just read a couple of things that I have sent to them to give an idea of the things you could look at on your own and say, well, yeah, that's what he's saying is correct. Right? This is all just about trying to get some proofs and evidence and not necessarily say, well, this is how it actually is completely. These are just pieces of proofs and evidence. And I'm going to let the people at the American Legion fill in the blanks. And so I decided to write them. And so I did on the 11th. Today's the 13th. It had been 2 days ago. 2:04 p.m. It's 2:36. Just over 48 hours ago. I wrote for the first time to the American Legion directly. And I went to the American Legion Department of Michigan to Attention Commander Strigo. Commander Strigo. In which I said, RE, veterans are God's chosen civil authority. Commander Strigo, I am Robert Allen Rutluski, SSG. I'd be a staff sergeant, veteran, United States Army. I attached my service verification letter. We've already looked at that. From the Department of Veteran Affairs, this email. My ASVAB score was 97%. I'm a graduate of the United States Army Prime Power Production Specialist Program, 52-week course of study based on operating and maintaining nuclear power plants, of all things. After 8 years of service, I left the Army to pursue a life in the civilian world and ended up at Davis-Besse Nuclear Power Station, Port Clinton, Ohio. I left there in 1994 to pursue a business adventure with my brother John, Air Force veteran. We learned some years later that the world is not fair, lost it all to bankers, brokers, and attorneys. Since then, I have been on my own journey to find out what happened in America and right the wrongs. I know many others have done the same, but unlike most, I've been reporting from the field by way of YouTube videos, now over 300, that you can find on Rob Ryder, yes, with 3 B's, on YouTube. These videos are my interpretation of what was written in a law, court document, government forms, warranty deed, mortgages, tax statements, and most recently, veterans' rights and entitlements, and of my filing forms, complaints, statements of truth, and sending to the thing that pretends to be the government. I have been doing this 24/7 for more years than I care to remember, and now I am a subject matter expert. I'm not writing you about me. My writing you is my duty to God and country. God wants me to start at the beginning. And in the beginning, you and I were instructed to raise your right hand and repeat after me. We swore an oath of office. And when we did so, it was in our full legal name. First name, middle name, last name. Robert Allen Rutluski, right? No initials, no nicknames. If you have a Real ID compliant driver's license, then you're already familiar with your full legal name. But for sake of clarity, the full legal name is an individual's first name, middle names, and last name or surname without use of initials or nicknames. That would be in 6 CFR Part 37, aka the Real ID requirements. This Real ID regulation states that the Real ID subparts A through E of the ID Act. This part applies to states and U.S. territories that chose to issue driver's licenses and identification cards that can be accepted by federal agencies for official purposes. In other words, if you want it to be official, you got to use your full legal name. Otherwise, it's not official as far as the federal government's concerned. To identify you, that is, right? Your identification is tied to your full legal name. A federal agency will only acknowledge its official obligation when we are identified by our full legal name. I have attached the oath of office form, DA-71. A commissioned officer would have subscribed, and you can plainly see first, middle, last name, no nicknames, no initials, and as previously stated, a federally recognized identification does not use nicknames and initials. So let's just look at that form real quick so I can say that I showed it. There it is, DA Form 71 for the Army. So obviously the other branches have their own version. I, first name, middle name, last name, and your social security number, right? Because your social security number authenticates your name. Well, there you are, right? They didn't say you could use a middle initial. Got to use your full legal name. It just makes sense. If you're going to identify yourself, you got to use your identification. And, the federal government would say, well, then let's write a regulation what that is. And they did. Right, it's called the Real ID Act, Part 6 CFR Part 37. It's kind of hard to argue with. Commander, an oath of office is meant to be a public security of the United States. It is this oath of office, an election certificate or appointment commission that empowers civil authority and military officers of the United States and several states to enforce the laws of the United States in the several states. Right? First of all, you need to be authorized. Swearing that I, Joe, middle initial, last name, so help me God, right, is not proper identification of an individual, and doing so creates a counterfeit public security of the United States, which is a crime against the United States. You use a middle initial name on an oath of office, that's a crime against the United States, so help me God. Any oath of office, be it local, state, national government, not subscribed with a full legal name, is evidence of a belligerent act against the United States. Intentional or not, I don't care if they meant it, they did it. It's got to be fixed. Commander, I hope you're sitting down as I'm about to tell you that no one other than the United States Armed Forces, and possibly the township supervisor, because he did use his full legal name, are filing oaths of office in the full legal name of the alleged office seeker. No mayor, county council, governor, representative, senator, police chief, sheriff, prosecutor, judge, justice, state police, attorney general, attorneys at law, or any other oath-bound office are filing their oaths of office in the individual's full legal name. And it is not witnessed by an individual using their full legal name. This is not a mistake. It's an insurrection. The result is that there are no civil officers to enforce the laws of the United States domestically. What we believe to be a democracy is actually a scheme of biblical proportions to destroy the one nation under God with liberty and justice for all, aka that'd be the Republic, from within. I have attached Public Law 102.14 from March 20th, 1991, which states that this nation is governed by the Noahide laws and not the Constitution. No joke. Read it. It doesn't mention the Constitution, but it says we're governed by the Noahide laws, and you can't be governed by two things, so apparently we're not governed by the Constitution. George Bush Sr., he signed it. I am not saying that everyone that filed an oath of office with a fictitious name is evil, but I am saying that they have no authority under the United States to enforce the laws on anyone. They have to comply with the jots and tittles of the law or vacate the office. If they refuse, then I say they are evil. As an example, I am attaching the oath of office of alleged prosecuting attorney of Kalkaska County, Michigan. According to this man's affidavit of identity, his full legal name is Michael Lee Orion Peralt. Yet, as you can see on his oath of office, it's Michael L. Peralt. Well, let me show you, because you can't see it yet. Oath of office. Right? I mean, how cheesy is this? It's on just a piece of typing paper. Duh. But here, this is, a second here. Computer needs to catch up. Come on, computer. This is his affidavit of identity when he ran for judge, for probate judge, right? Candidate's identification, last name, first name, middle, Michael Lee Orion Peralt. Whoop. But that isn't the name on the oath of office he took to be the prosecutor. He put Michael L. Peralt. And it was sworn and subscribed by somebody else using the middle initial name, which isn't their name. Right? So this is a counterfeit public security of the United States. Either they fix it or arrest them. But in either case, they can't try anybody for anything under these names. They don't have any authority under the United States. And this isn't the proper wording for a state oath of Michigan, and there's all sorts of things. But that's what I'm complaining about, man. If somebody's done wrong, then do it right. Two wrongs don't make it right. If you want to claim to have the authority, then you had better hold yourself to a higher standard. So anyways, as I did, okay, as we can see. So Commander, this is a counterfeit public security in the United States, falsely witnessed by another individual using their middle initial name. Neither individual has any authority under the United States, and yet they are persecuting a fellow veteran in a simulated legal process under color of law in Kalkaska County, Michigan. I'm attaching the alleged misdemeanor complaint against Dana Reed Smith, veteran. This complaint has not been signed by the complainant witness or a magistrate, yet Dana has been relentlessly persecuted by false accusers using fictitious names who conceal Dana's full legal name from the court docket and instead refer to Dana as, all right, so if you went to the court docket, it has a case number and it says it's Smith, Dana. Well, that isn't Dana Reed Smith. And yet, right? Dana Reed Smith is not secure in his person. Well, let's look at that jewel. This would be on anybody who's ever gotten a misdemeanor complaint or any kind of citation against them, right? They're not treating Dana special. They do this every day. This is business as usual. Right? First of all, there is no victim or complainant. Right? So who was it that really complained? But there is a complaining witness, which is Deputy Ray Ferrier. But is that Deputy Ray Ferrier, is that his full legal name? I don't think so. Well, then this can't be legal because you're not using your full legal name. None of these people are. Sarah Morgan, Diane Bennett, Kevin Schaub, Deputy Paul Bellinger. None of you are using your full legal name. It's not legal. Right? State of Michigan, County of Kalkaska. The complaining witness says that on or about some date in Kalkaska County, Michigan, the defender, contrary to law, did these things. Well, who's the state of Michigan, County of Kalkaska, if it happened in Kalkaska County, Michigan? Well, I can tell you what it is. It's a frickin' business. Right? County of Kalkaska is a franchise, the state of Michigan. Local franchise. It's a business. You can look them up on Duns and Bradstreet. Put in their phone number, and it'll show them as a business. So we went on and on and on and on and on. Get to the end. Well, the complaining witness never signed it. And neither did a judge. And yet, you know, the guy who's pretending to be the prosecutor, somebody scribbled here and said he authorized the warrant. You can't do it. Nobody signed it. They didn't follow the procedure, and so, you know, I'm not going to give them a pass. Do it right, or it isn't done right. And I think they said back in the day, it's better that one guilty man goes free than 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man be put into jail. So if you're not going to do it right, you're going to have to let him go. That'll empty the jails. Right, this is just common sense stuff, right? Commander, this is a direct offense of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, as Dana is not secure in his persons, papers, houses, and effects. And no one has sworn an oath to their complaint against him. Instead, a kangaroo court has stolen Dana's identification to gain control of his Social Security account and other private wealth, caused him to lose his job and physically and mentally torture him. These courts make all crimes commercial. His false accusers and Talmudic judge are not officers with authority under the Constitution of the United States or Michigan. They are enemies of the state engaged in an insurrection against the people of the United States. His case is not unique. It is actually business as usual in courtrooms around the country. No prosecutor or attorney is ever put under oath in court and never uses their full legal name. No court seals are used. Neither the clerk of the court or judge uses their full legal name. They just on and on and on. It's like, who the hell are you people? And all this is happening in a room with a gold fringed flag, a.k.a. the symbol of our nation. That's what 840-10 said it was. We need to retake the courtroom and defend the nation. Commander, I'm being way too brief to explain the corruption, but it is not my intent. My intent is to get you to agree with me that an oath of office has to be subscribed and witnessed using full legal names without exception, or it's invalid. And its creation is an offense against the United States and the laws of God. Because you're going to swear, right, that that's your name. That's what this dude did, right? Now, he didn't say, so help me God, or his, but most of them say, so help me God. And so, in fact, his is different than most. Normally, it would say I, and then have a space in here for Michael L. Peralt. Swear, da-da-da-da-da, so help me God. Well, he isn't Michael L. Peralt, so he just falsely swore. And he took God's name in vain. It's like, well, you know, we're talking about violating the commandments. Right? The common law has been violated. Anyways, and the laws of God. If it is true for Kalkaska County, Michigan, then it's true for Lansing, Michigan, and the District of Columbia. And the individual claiming authority under the United States has to have filed a valid oath of office to have a legitimate claim. There is even more to the oath story, but I will supply that information separately because I had already sent it to the VA, and so I just sent it to them separately. And I think I'll read that one too here in a minute. What I need to do for now is to convince you that the American Legion is the answer to this FUBAR, which means fucked up beyond all recognition. The American Legion has the authority. Commander, are you aware that the American Legion is the United States? It is by definition. We looked at this earlier. 28 U.S.C. 3002 says the United States is a federal corporation. Okay, then. The American Legion is a federal corporation. It is the United States, and it is being offended by alleged civilian authorities offending the Constitution and laws of the United States. The American Legion is a ruler and the agencies of the United States have a duty to enforce its orders. So start barking some orders, Commander, and quash the rebellion ongoing within the territorial limits of the United States. You have the authority. Call Kalkaska County Prosecutor's Office and inform the office who is really in charge and order them to clear and honorably discharge veteran's name. Then we can take on with truly draining the swamps. Very respectfully yours, at your service, Sent this to these other people. And then I told them in the last 2 weeks I'd sent a bunch of paperwork to the Veterans Administration Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection. So forth and so on. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, right? That the man using this cannot enforce this on a honorably discharged veteran. And that the American Legion has a duty to put an end to it because they have a duty to uphold the Constitution, uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And Dana's Fourth Amendment rights are being violated. They're not using his name. They didn't swear to their complaint. Right? It's pretty simple. But when you tell, the state court and the clerk of the court and the attorneys and the prosecutors, and which we have done numerous times in Dana's case, well, it's like they don't hear what you're saying, and they continue to move forward. It has to come to an end. Okay, hang on. Okay, so I sent the commander a number that were just copies of what I had already sent to the VA. This is the one that to me is the most important, right? Because I'm going to say all the way up to the President of the United States, they haven't taken a proper oath of office. And it would be easy enough to get the president to do it because he actually needs to take 2 oaths of office. He needs to do it in his full legal name. There is no evidence that happened, and until he does, he's really not the president of the United States. He's just the president-elect. He could be the president, and the ones that can make him the president is the American Legion because they could go there and give him his oaths. Make sure it's done right? To the jot and tittle. That's what I'm talking about. So, Commander Strigo, this is my last transmission of the day. It exposes that those in high office do not have a valid oath of office and do not represent the United States. The American Legion, federal corporation, is the United States. Please take charge. So what I had told the VA Accountability Office is this. Take notice. Members of the United States Armed Forces subscribe their oath of office in full legal name, and the veterans are still bound by their same oath. The full legal name is defined as, we've already talked about that, VA Accountability Team, please hold the United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs and the VA Police accountable to all veterans of the United States Armed Forces for ensuring the President-elect Donald John Trump and soon-to-be Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces complies with the Constitution and laws of the United States by reciting and subscribing and registering for record certificates of oath of office that satisfy the 2nd and 6th articles of the Constitution of the United States. Then God will bless America. So let's look at that real quick. What does that mean? We're in a judicial branch. How do I get back to the menu? Sorry. So let's look at the 6th article real quick, because this one's the key that nobody is doing. Right? The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all, A-L-L, all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath of office or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Well, first of all, the president is an executive officer, so he shall take this oath to support. Because we're going to see the one in the second, Article 2, doesn't support the Constitution. It's been taken care of in a different piece of legislation called U.S.C.A, S-T-A-T, U.S.C.A 23, which is the first law passed by the first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution. And no religious test, right? You can't say, so help me God. That's a religious test. If you add, so help me God, to your oath, well, you just violated the Constitution. Yeah, it's a wild, wild way they got it set up, but that's what they did. And, I just have to read it and say, well, that's what it says. Now you have to do it. You guys wrote it. Now do it. That's my job. Make sure you do what you wrote. Well, where's your oath of office? Right here. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and I will do my best to my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. But it doesn't say to support. And it doesn't say, so help me God. But when he says it, he says, so help me God. So I don't know if the so help me God is not included in the oath. It's just extra words added. But this is the oath he has to take. And if that's on, if it says so help me God on the oath that he subscribed, then it's incorrect. I guess that's the simplest way to state it. Right? But it doesn't say that he will support the Constitution. And the 6th article said you have to support the Constitution. What are we to do? Let's read on. Donald J. Trump is not the full legal name of President-elect and is unsuitable as identification for our nation's President and Commander-in-Chief. He must recite and subscribe and have certified his various oaths of office as Donald John Trump. Oh, that's what he needs to do. Yeah, he needs to use his name, Donald John Trump. I, Donald John Trump. Further, the oath he swore at the inauguration is only one of the 2 or more, I don't know how many there are, but I know of at least 2, he has to recite, and by the addition of the religious test, so help me God, he invalidated the only one oath of office he did publicly recite. The Constitution mandates the President-elect subscribe 2 or more oaths of office, which we just looked at, in his full legal name. Then these oaths must be properly recorded in the official records of the United States. Not only must he recite and subscribe the oath of office in the 2nd article of the Constitution of the United States, but also as an officer of the executive branch, Commander-in-Chief, he must comply with the oath to support said Constitution in accordance with the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States without any religious test added. Hey, we talked about that already. The first law of the first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution mandates the only oath of office that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States. This law is properly entitled an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths. Go figure. And is found in Statutes at Large at 1 Stat 23. I have attached a government printing office copy for your inspection. Let's take a look at that. Where is 1 Stat 23? It's right there, 1 Stat 23. George Washington, President, John Adams, Vice President of the United States and President of the Senate, and Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg, Speaker of the House. Them 3 got together and passed this law. Forget everybody else. They did it on their own. And they said, being enacted by the Senate and representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States shall, and shall means shall, my friends, not maybe. Shall, do it today, now, be administered in the form following, to wit, I, state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. That's the oath. You didn't take that oath that way. You didn't comply with 1 Stat 23, which means you didn't comply with the 6th Article of the Constitution, because this says this is the oath that satisfies the 6th Article. And unless they pass another oath or law that says, well, this one does, then only this one can. It's perfectly simple, right? I mean, this isn't difficult. It's just, well, then make them do it right. Please. Okay, so where was that at? Right, when I have attached government counting, okay, all executive and judicial branches of the United States and several states, as well as members of Congress of the United States and legislatures of the several states, are required to recite, subscribe, record this oath of office in their full legal name to support the Constitution. None have done so, leaving the United States government in several states void of qualified civil officers to form a civil government. In addition, the oath to support the Constitution, 1 Stat 23, not being executed. The oath of office currently recited by alleged members of Congress, Judiciary Administration, which is found in 5 United States Code 3331, contains a religious test, so help me God, invalidating its legitimacy under the Constitution. Members elect of Congress are to record their oaths of office and certificates of election in accordance with Title II United States Code. An inspection of these records would provide proof and evidence that members-elect did not file constitutionally valid oath of office, nor provide federally mandated certificates of election. Instead, these individuals filed counterfeit public securities of the United States, which is a crime against the United States according to the Crimes Act of 1790, officially known as the Acts for Punishment of Certain Crimes Against the United States. Copy attached for your inspection. And again, these were laws written just after the Constitution was ratified by the first Congress to, emphasize what they meant in the Constitution. And they wrote all these things that are crimes against the United States in the Crimes Act of 1790, which is, the common name for whatever this thing is, but an act for punishment of certain crimes against the United States, but that's what they're doing. And because they're offending the United States, the American Legion has to do something about it. That's what I'm saying. Unfortunately, the member-elect subscribed copies of their oath of office are warehoused by the National Archives with a 30-year sealed from public inspection agreement. Right? The oaths of office that they sign go to the National Archives, and you can't see them for 30 years. Nevertheless, I have attached a section of the congressional record dated 1/17/2019 showing the deceit of these individuals acting as members of the United States House of Representatives. These pages are intended by Congress to be proof and evidence of the acts of their individuals acting as Congress. What is evidence is that these individuals pretended to file an oath of office after adjourning for the day. Not only had they adjourned, the oath has an invalid religious test, and the name is not the individual's full legal name. What is evidenced by the congressional record is a crime against the United States, not an oath of office. Well, let's take a look. Where was that? That'd be right here. All right, this is the congressional record. You can download it online. You can search by things like put in oath of office and see what comes up. January 17, 2019. Ms. Underwood, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn. The motion's been agreed to. Accordingly, under this provision of this order, the House is adjourned until tomorrow. All right, but before tomorrow, they put in oath of office of members and residential commissioners and delegates. The oath of office required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States and provided by subsection or Section 2 of an Act of May 13th, 1884, 23-22, to be administered to members, resident commissioners, so forth and so on, in 5 U.S.C. 3331. But it says, so help me God. And so that doesn't, they lied, basically, because it doesn't satisfy the 6th article. It is required, but this doesn't satisfy it because it says, so help me God. And then it goes on to show how all these people did it and the name they did. Middle initials, Mike instead of Michael, middle initial. State after state, right? Eric A. Rick Crawford. C.A. Dutch Rupsenberger. What the heck? None of these people filed an oath of office in their full legal name. That's what the heck. Okay, so they didn't do it. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just pointing it out to you. I'm looking for somebody who can tell me what to do about it or what they're going to do about it, what we can do about it. But I got a plan. I'm just taking it to you, the American Legion. What is evidenced is that these individuals pretended to file an oath of office after adjourning for the day. I think I said that. Not only had they adjourned, the oath was an invalid religious test. Yes, it does. And the name is not the individual's full legal name. It is not. What is evidenced by the congressional record is a crime against the United States, not an oath of office. None of the individuals claiming an oath of office. None of the individuals claiming an office in Congress has a proper certificate of election or oath of office to hold the office. The several states have failed to send qualified members to Congress, and in so failing to do so, have self-confessed that the several states are at war with the United States. Our nation is operating without a valid, elected or appointed civil government, and the individuals pretending to have authority under the United States as a civil government are engaged, consciously or not, in treason, insurrection, or rebellion against the United States, and this must end immediately. Take notice, the United States has been under martial law since President Abraham Lincoln declared martial law. The governors of the several states refused to relinquish their wartime power as the state's commander-in-chief and issue a proclamation in accordance with the 2nd Article of General Orders Number 100, aka the Labor Code. As a result, the several states are now in a state of war against the United States and its federal wartime government. Evidence of wartime government in the United States is the use of the gold fringed flag in all courtrooms, offices, houses of worship in the United States. This style of flag is controlled by Army Regulation 840-10. The flag used in these places of government administration is an Army flag, symbol of our nation. It only makes sense that as the United States is now under military rule, that the class of citizens comprising the civil authority of the federal wartime government is the United States Armed Forces veterans, dispersed throughout the land and not individuals inhabiting the District of Columbia. United States Armed Forces, honorably discharged veterans, are the civil authority ordained by God within the territorial boundaries of the United States. And on behalf of this civil authority, I order the United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs and VA Police to, number 1, install Donald John Trump into office as President of the United States of America and Commander-in-Chief of the United States by administering him his required oath of office to satisfy both the 2nd and 6th Articles of the Constitution of the United States. Starting with the alleged members of Congress expelled from the District of Columbia all individuals who have sworn falsely to their identity and support of the Constitution of the United States and filed counterfeit public security of the United States in place of constitutionally valid oath of office. Expel them past the white markers that ring the seat of government of the United States and do not let them return until they have complied with the jots and tittles of the law and authenticated their identification and national status. Do it today. Inform the United States Armed Forces that its honorably discharged veterans are the civil authority in the United States until military rule has been rescinded and the civil government is reconstituted. And that the armed forces have a duty to enforce the laws of the United States domestically until civil order is reestablished. Until then, veterans rule. In the holy name of Jesus, let it be done. Thank you for your service to veterans. Amen. All right, so they could have done that. I sent it to the VA Accountability Office, and I haven't heard back from them. Well, now I sent it to the more I look, well, the place that is the United States, because they meet the definition. It's a federal corporation. And for those that, might question that the United States military hasn't, can enforce laws in the United States domestically. Well, it's in Title 10 under insurrection. Which actually has two different, there's two different chapters on insurrection in Title 10. Chapter 13 is under insurrection, and so is Chapter 15. Well, Chapter 13 says, let's look at, like this one. The President, by using the militia, or the armed forces, or both, or by any other means, shall take such measure as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy, if it so hinders the execution of the laws of that state and the United States within the state. Well, that's what's happening. We can't get the laws enforced in the United States. Right? So, opposes or obstructs the execution of laws of the United States or impedes the course of justice under those laws. Okay, well, what's missing? Well, we don't have a president yet because Donald J. Trump didn't take his oath of office as Donald John Trump. Properly done, jots and tittles. Right? Go find an expert. Go visit the president. I'm sure he'd be happy to do it again. I'm sure he'd be ecstatic. To be unleashed his wartime powers. Because we are at war. All right, then this is chapter 15. It's about insurrection again. So I'm not really sure why it's in here twice. I haven't really read it that close, but it is twice. Apparently it's a big deal. Hey, if you didn't believe me the first time, believe me the second. So whenever the president considers it necessary to use the militia or armed forces under this chapter, he shall, by proclamation, immediately order the insurgents to disperse and retire peacefully to their abodes within a limited time. So he could tell everybody in Congress to leave, go back home to your state, and don't come back until your paperwork is properly done and the American Legion says so. Then you can come back. Right? When the Department of Michigan says that the people that are going to represent Michigan are representing Michigan, well, then they can go back to D.C. Until then, they ain't going. They may go to a FEMA camp, but they ain't going to D.C. Right? So they need to quit playing around, and that's what this is all about. Playtime is over. Because we do have the authority, and we're going to use it. And one of the things we need to do is right here, right? They need to take this oath. 1 Stat 23. And whatever other oath of office is necessary. But this is the oath of office that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution, not the one that they're taking now. Because the one they're taking now has a religious test. and they're not using their full legal name. And I don't know what else to say, so I'm going to stop, right? That's enough on this, but that's where we are. Please share this with any member of the military you know, or any member of the veterans, or a veteran, or somebody in one of these societies. And for anybody else, you know, it really isn't just the American Legion. There's any number of other federal corporations, and you would just have to go look them up in title. They're all in Title 36, United States Code. Patriotic organizations. And go look at them and see what it takes to be a member and decide if you want to be a member. But if you were, I'm saying that puts you in the United States and out of their jurisdiction here in the States, right? It will give you an official address and make you official. Okay. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you.